The NFL season officially kicked off on Thursday night. We are now in football mode, so it's time for the first New York Sports Rapid Rundown of the 2023 NFL season. And on this episode, we've got a legend joining me in studio. You see him with me every Sunday on a show that we do called Sundays with Serby. He is a seasoned veteran when it comes to sports writing, one of the best in the biz. My guy, Steve Serby. Steve, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great now that we're finally together.
Well, we're always together every week on Sundays with Serby, but I just haven't had you on this show, so I'm glad to have you here.
Yeah, why is that, by the way? You've been ignoring me?
No, it's just it was the timing, and now we have you on the New York Sports Rapid Rundown, and we're going to talk a bunch of New York sports.
I'm free every day for the rest of my life.
Is that so?
Feel free to call.
You're a great columnist, so you're always busy. We know this. We know you're busy. But this week, got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about football, of course, because it's week one of the football season. We're also going to discuss expectations for the New York Giants after a shocking 2022, as well as expectations for the New York Jets after last season ended in disappointment. But first, Steve, we got to talk a little baseball. We got to talk about the New York Mets. This week, New York Post baseball columnist Joel Sherman, he reported that the Metropolitans, they're making a push to land David Stearns and that they're down the road in negotiations with him. Do the Mets need to hire him as president of baseball operations? Does that need to happen?
Well, first of all, he's a very well-respected, bright executive, and this has been rumored for over a year now. And look, I believe Steve Cohen knows what he's doing. I think he's a quick study. He's made a fortune in the stock market and in the hedge fund business. So I trust Steve Cohen, and if this is a guy they're targeting, I think it's going to work out well.
You think it'll work out well for him? Do you think this is part of, they need that restructuring, they need somebody at the top, almost that adult in the room in the front office to make things work for where they're trying to go?
Well, they could use a pitcher too, I think. But look, the kitty, Alvarez and all the baby Mets, this is a guy who can help them develop and fast forward their development and help the Mets rebuild after this nightmare of a season when pitchers that were older than you couldn't get the job done. And I think that this Met rebuild will be quicker than people think.
All right, so you're optimistic that the Met rebuild will be quicker than people think. And look, it's been a disappointing September for baseball in New York, but I got to ask you this. You just mentioned the baby Mets. Do you like what you're seeing from these baby Mets, and are you encouraged about the future for the Metropolitans?
Oh, absolutely. Brett Beatty, great kid, did a Q&A with him early in the season. He's had his ups and downs, and he's a kid, I think, that can handle adversity and is not scared of New York, and he has natural tools and the perfect makeup for New York, and I think he's going to be a star in this town. And how much I love this kid. Alvarez wants to learn English, how to do interviews with Steve Gelbs. How great is that? I mean, I love that kid. I did a Q&A with him too.
Yep.
He's made of the right stuff, and he's going to be a 30 home run guy plus for that team, and the pitchers will grow to trust him, and all these baby Mets will grow together, and the new executive, Mr. Stearns, when he comes in, will help Mr. Epler find the talent that will enable the Mets to rebuild quicker than people think.
So I like what you did there. You put Mr. Stearns in there as a lock. You're saying it's going to happen.
I'm saying it's going to happen.
Right.
If Joel Sherman and John Heyman report it, take it to the bank.
Well, there you go. It's a lot of pressure on Joel and John there, but take it to the bank with Steve. All right. Here's what we're going to do, Steve. You ready to talk some football?
Yeah, all right, if you insist.
Okay. Let's talk some football. We're going to talk about the New York Jets. Week one, they've got the Buffalo Bills. But I want to talk about the expectations for the Jets because Jets beat reporter for the New York Post, Brian Costello, he did a season preview this week, and he had the Jets going 8-9, losing record, Steve. He says that he thinks the Jets will have a hard time meeting expectations in 2023.
Yeah, but he thinks that Rodgers will miss 9 games. I think that's behind
He's putting his all losses there. That was his thought. I haven't talked to Brian about that.
No, I'm just kidding.
I know you are. I know you are. But what do you think the Jets will do this season? Do you agree with our colleague Brian Costello that they will be 8-9, or do you think they'll be better than that? What do you think the Jets can do in 2023?
Well, I pick 10 wins, 10-7.
10-7, okay.
They will win the division for the first time since 2002, the Herm Edwards Jets. And Rodgers will play well. But the key reason is not only Rodgers, but that defense. That could be the number one defense in the NFL. I mean, that's their goal. That's what they're obsessed with. And Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner and C.J. Mosley, they've got stars at every level of that defense. And they've got these predators that, you know, Aaron Rodgers, if he gives them an early lead, could you imagine a new New York Sack Exchange pinning their ears back, easy for me to say, and getting after the opposing quarterback? Could you imagine that?
Well, I can imagine it. I just thought where you might be going is I thought you might try to say that they're going to be as good as the 85 Bears. I didn't know if you were going to go to that level of hype.
No, that was DJ Reed you're thinking.
Okay, but I just didn't know if you were going to go to that level of hype.
No, they will not be as good. The 85 Bears are in a league of their own, let's face it. But the Jets can be what they have to do. They have to get takeaways. That's one thing that has kept them from being the number one defense, takeaways. So maybe Sauce Gardner gets a few extra interceptions this year if teams are dumb enough to throw in his direction on his island. But, you know, the waves of pass rushers and defensive linemen that Jeff Ulbrich and Robert Saleh can send after the opposing quarterback. I know I spoke to Brian Baldinger, NFL Network, who does tremendous breakdowns, Baldy's breakdowns.
Yep.
He thinks that the Jet defense will inspire fear among quarterbacks.
Inspiring fear. Okay, there we go. So you're very high in the Jets defense. 10 wins from this year. You got them winning division. So I got to go to the
It is playoffs or bust.
Well, that's where I'm going now. This is what I want to ask you now, because you said it's playoffs or bust. So if they don't make the playoffs.
You had no idea what you were going to ask me.
Of course I do. I'm always prepared, Steve. Always prepared. But if they don't make the playoffs, is this a failure?
Yes. Absolute
failure.
Oh, yeah, no question. What, don't you agree?
Yeah, well, considering there's a lot of Super Bowl talk and Super Bowl hype, I should say.
Well, they saved $35 million out of the goodness of Aaron Rodgers' wallet, but the expectations are so high, the goals are so high.
Right.
They plastered a target on their backs, a bullseye on their back. You watch Hard Knocks, right?
I do.
Okay. They embrace the hate. Bring it on. They want this. They say they want it. Now they have to walk the talk, walk the walk. And if they don't, this is the most hyped Jets season I can remember. If they don't, it's an absolute failure. This team is built to win and win now and win big.
Yeah, they got to win now, got to win big. There's a lot of pressure on the New York Jets, and we'll see what they're able to do. But Steve Serby, he's got them 10-7 winning the division. We'll see how that all plays out. Yeah.
I'm picking them to go to the AFC Championship game, where they will lose to my Super Bowl runner-up, Baltimore Ravens.
Well, okay, you told me you had the Ravens going against the Niners in this year's Super Bowl. All right, we'll see if Steve Serby's predictions play out for that. And
I'm never right.
Well, then don't follow.
No, they used to call me Mr. Loser for a reason, right?
Nobody called you that. I don't believe that. Nobody said that.
Well, my wife back there does.
Yeah. To the lovely Miss Phyllis, who's here, Miss Serby, who's here. Yes, who's here watching the show. She didn't say that either. All right, here's what we're going to do. On to the Giants. We got to talk some Giants, Steve.
I got,
Paul Schwartz.
My parking's, I'm over an hour now. I'm going to get, you're costing me,
Steve, are you trying to
costing me an extra $30.
It's the New York Sports Rapid Rundown. You're trying to be more rapid than the show.
I'm rapidly running down, too. I can tell you that.
That's a quotable for sure. On to the Giants. I want to talk to you about this because our colleague, Paul Schwartz, in his preview, he thinks the Giants could be better than they were last year. He predicted them to finish 10-7. How do you see the 2023 season playing out for the New York Giants?
Well, they addressed some holes. Deonte Banks and Trey Hawkins bolster the cornerback position, which needed to be done. They improved their run defense with a couple of backups for Dexter Henry, Sexy Dexy, and Leonard Williams. Daniel Jones in the second year of the same system under Brian Dable and Mike Kafka. And of course, Darren Waller. Giants are keeping their fingers crossed that his hamstring tightness will allow him to show up for the opener against the Cowboys. They added speed with Paris Campbell. They've got Wandale Robinson back, Sterling Shepard back. The offensive line, they're counting on a better year from Evan Neal. Saquon Barkley has an $11 million chip on his shoulder.
Yep.
He's in tremendous shape. The problem is their schedule. Their schedule is murderous. But I'm picking them to go 10-7, a la Paul Schwartz.
Okay, so you're rocking with Paul on this, got them going 10-7. This brings me to another question I have about this. Is there a world where they could have the same amount of wins they had last year? They won 9 games last year. Obviously, there was a tie in there. Or they could have fewer wins, but they are actually a better team. Do you see a world where that could be the case?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, look at the NFL. I mean, when I made my preseason picks, I had 20 teams at least at 9-8. One injury changes everything. Parity is so rampant in the league. Absolutely, they could be a better team, but it might not be reflected in the record. I am picking 10-7. Do I feel etched in stone about it? No. It could be 7-10. It could be 8-9. It could be 9-8. Look, if Daniel Jones takes that next step, and if Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari can rush the passer for Wink Martindale, then I think 10-7 is realistic.
All right, so you need some things to happen for that to be realistic. We will see what goes on with
and look,
the Giants.
they haven't. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
but,
it's fine.
That's your problem. They haven't closed the gap completely, of course, on the Eagles. The Eagles are still a class of the NFC East, and I think the Micah Parsons Cowboys will also make the playoffs. So Sunday night's an important game for the Giants to set a tone for the season. It's not win at all costs or must win, but it's an important game because one game, you don't want to be playing the Cowboys and being swept again by the Cowboys when the Cowboys could be your last wild card contestant. So important game, but yeah, they could regress, but I just think that they are headed in the right direction, and I'm sticking with 10-7.
All right, you're sticking with 10-7.
I'm sticking with 3 teams in the NFC East to make the playoffs.
3 teams in the NFC East to make the playoffs, one of them being the Giants. We will see.
And they don't have to, they don't have all these glamorous quarterbacks to deal with that Aaron Rodgers and the Jets do.
Yeah, AFC much tougher, or at least looking that way, than the NFC.
The NFC, you've got what, 4 teams? Name the teams.
Yeah, I think at the top, you're going to have to look at Philadelphia. You're going to look at San Francisco. You'd probably have to put the Cowboys there after that. And then,
right. And who else? Who else scares
Giants,
you?
Lions,
Nobody.
Seahawks. Yeah, you can take your teams after that.
I like the Seahawks to make the playoffs.
Okay, I like Seahawks to make the playoffs.
But other than the Eagles and 49ers,
they're the class of the conference.
Nobody else should scare the Giants.
Yeah, that gives Giants
10-7.
There you go. That gives Giants fans a lot of hope there, so we'll see how all that plays out. Okay. Now, most times if you watch myself and Steve when we do Sundays with Serby, Steve asks me some questions. He'll sometimes have some curveballs. And when you do your Q&As, you ask people a lot of rapid-fire questions. So you know what I decided to do for the bonus edition of the New York Sports Rapid Rundown? I said, we've got to have some rapid-fire questions for Steve. Steve, why are you rolling your eyes? You should be excited about this. This is what you do to other people.
I hadn't prepared for this.
Well, sometimes I'm not prepared. You throw questions at me. There's a lot of things we haven't been prepared for on Sundays with Serby. Things that we didn't know was going to happen.
You're always prepared. I've noticed that.
I don't know about that. Yeah, myself and my producer, Lee Ensler, we've seen you do some things where we were not prepared. Trust me.
Lee got you to get the plug of his name in. Very nice.
Listen, I like to shout out the great people I work with. Also, shout out to our director, Brianna, who does a great job.
So I got to run anyway.
No. Now you can't rapidly run. Here we go. Rapid fire. You always ask people this. 3 dinner guests. You got 3 dinner guests. Who are you having dinner with?
Well, Muhammad Ali has to be one of them. Okay, Muhammad Ali has to be one of them. My wife has to be another one. My wife is in the studio, and I have to say that whether I mean it or not.
That was a smart, I hope you mean it, but that was a smart move. Okay.
And, man, I don't know. Can I get back to you on that?
No. How are you not prepared for this when you ask this to people all the time?
I've always thought, there's so many people to pick from in the history of the world.
That is true.
All right, Nelson Mandela.
That's pretty good. Muhammad Ali, the lovely Phyllis Serby, and Nelson Mandela. All right,
I'll go with them. Can't go wrong with that group.
No, I think that's a pretty solid group. Favorite movie? What are we going with?
No comment.
No comment on the favorite movie.
Shawshank Redemption has to be up there. Oh. Goodfellas has to be up there.
That's a great one, too.
A Bronx Tale.
Bronx Tale, okay.
Remember that scene with the Hells Angels at the bar?
Yes.
Now yous can't leave? That's what I feel like now. You're telling me
I'm telling you,
I got to pay a parking tab, and you're telling me now yous can't leave.
Steve's good. Trust me. All right, favorite musician?
Well, I'm a Motown guy from way back when.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Four Tops and Temptations were mine.
Ah, those dope. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to stick with them.
You're going to go Four Tops, so you can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with that. I kind of know the answer to this one. Favorite restaurant?
How do you know the answer to that one?
Because I believe I've been there with you. We've had dinner at your favorite restaurant.
Yeah, well, we have. Well, Parkside and Corona, of course. But I want to mention Elio's in Manhattan.
Okay.
Primola in Manhattan. Where else can I get a free dinner?
Oh, you have that kind of hookup. Okay, I see.
Well, I don't, but I'm trying. Well, let's go with those three for now.
All right.
Sushi Senin. Do you like sushi, by the way?
I do like sushi.
Try Sushi Senin.
Okay, that's a good right. That's on the list. Last one I got for you. And I think it's good because of what you've been doing in your career for so long. What would you say is either the best or the favorite sports column that you have written thus far in your career?
My next one.
Ooh, I like that.
How's that for an answer?
That is a great answer.
I would say, well, one of them was a column I did when Dennis Byrd suffered his spinal cord tragedy, smashing into Scott Mercereau when was it? 1991, I think it was. And I remember interviewing his pastor, Dennis Byrd's pastor, while he was still in the hospital. Well, Dennis Byrd was in the hospital, not his pastor, thank God. And I remember typing on my bed and actually crying when I typed the column.
It just moved you. It moved you so much.
It moved me.
Right.
And Dennis Byrd was such a good guy, loved football, loved his family, and that was so heartbreaking. And what a story he ended up writing, Rise and Stand and Walk, or what was the name of his book?
I can't remember the name of his book, but it was something about walking again.
But he was able to walk again, God bless him. And the other one, and this is not a Q&A you're talking about, a 9/11 column I wrote right after the 9/11 tragedy, and I remember being very emotional about that one because of obviously the nightmare that day in our nation's history.
And it's so timely with us coming up on the anniversary of that. And one thing I hear from that is that what you write, it doesn't impact just the readers. It can impact you too as a columnist as well. And
yeah, those two really impacted me more than any others.
Yeah. Good stuff. You handled the New York Sports Rapid Rundown. You handled it, Steve. Well, I expected you to, though.
How come can I get more than 3 dinner guests?
No, you can't. You can't. 'Cause then that's a party.
Yeah, so.
Then that'd be like a dinner party.
Well, maybe I'll change my question to dinner party.
Then you'll get a lot of people.
By the way, you're invited too.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Steve, I want to thank you for joining me on the New York Sports Rapid Rundown. I also want to make sure people give Steve his flowers. He's one of the great sports columnists that we have had in the city. I've known you for quite some time, since the start of my career, and always got to say thank you. So I'm glad you were able to be here with me for the show.
It's my honor and my privilege, but you told me you were going to call me the greatest.
You know what?
Not one of the great. You told me greatest. That's why I came in.
Well, that ties back into your dinner guest, Ali, who is the greatest. You are the greatest sports columnist in New York sports history. There you go. The great Steve Serby.
Too kind.
Thank you for watching the New York Sports Rapid Rundown. Thanks, everybody. You did great work on this. You heard me shout out my producer, Lee Insler, my director, Brianna.
I had so much fun. I want to come back every week and do this.
We can't do
every
that.
week. Come on.
We can't do that every week. We got to change up the guests every now and then.
Come on, I have no life. I mean.
Yes, because guys, he writes no columns at all. He writes none at all. Steve has nothing to do. Steve, thank you. Next time, next week, appreciate it. We will do this again for sure. The great Steve Serby. I'm Dexter Henry. Until next time, guys. Peace.